changed? Sorry, Dr. Phukon. I'd like to invite you, please, Dr. Abhijit Phukon. He's the Economic Advisor, Chief Information Secretary Officer, CISO. And also like to invite the chair for the session, Shweta, Rajpal, Kohli, please. Please welcome them with a loud round of applause. Over to you, Shweta.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shweta.
Dr. Abhijit Phukon, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, but I think today's session coming right at the start of the India Internet Day is a very critical one, especially after we've just heard Vijay Shekhar Sharma. VSS is always a hard act to follow, but I'm going to try my best. But at least there is a continuing theme around financial services, digital sovereignty, and where India is headed. I think we live in times where digital sovereignty, which is in fact a topic that sits clearly at the intersection of governance, technology, innovation, global power dynamics, has assumed very, very interesting, I would say, significance. Because today we're living in an increasingly interconnected world. So who controls your infrastructure? Who is controlling the digital ecosystem is no longer just a technical question. It's a question that's a matter of national security. It's a question that's a matter of economic resilience. And in India's case, it is a question of India's relevance as a growing economic superpower. Who better than Dr. Abhijit Phukon to talk all about it? Because just to give you a sense of why Dr. Phukon is really sitting in the midst of all of this, as the economic advisor for the Department of Financial Services at the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Phukon has an all-important task of charting India's future in financial services. And I know from experience of having met him several times in the last few months that he's working super hard at it. Dr. Phukon, thank you for being with us here. Let me start by getting your opening remarks on the overall thinking of the Indian government right now, because we do know that fintech or financial services and the kind of technological advancements that we've seen is really the crown jewel for not just the Indian startup ecosystem, but perhaps for India as a whole. So, sir, how do you think India is hoping that this will now go into its second wave, or into, I would say, the next I would say, big leap for India as far as financial services are concerned?
Thank you, Shweta. Before I come into your questions, let me, extend sincere thanks for inviting me. And it's always good, love to interact here, how the young entrepreneurs actually, think, act, react. So again, thanks to Thai, thanks to all the organizers for inviting me. Having said that, in last couple of years, we have been, looking at that the Indian, startup ecosystem and the fintech have been growing at a phenomenal rate. And there have been a lot of, issues with the fintech and the startup ecosystem have been actually, providing solution. Those are localized in nature, actually. And while saying so, we must be also, appreciating that a single rupee, generation somewhere is actually a creation of wealth somewhere. So definitely there has been, a tremendous role in terms of, providing solutions to our day-to-day problems, and also, creating employment generations. But now, in the fast wave of, startup, fintech, evolution, we have seen, a lot of DPIs that have been actually built up, especially Aadhaar, UPI, those have been actually disruptive in terms of the way actually it has actually, enabled the individual players to leverage the strength of, doing business and, democratize the process of, distributions of public services to the, last man and the last area. So if we see more and less, perhaps the fintech ecosystems is actually concentrating in a few areas, largely, payments and all those. And the, next leg of startup or the DPI kind of a things would actually come into those areas where there is less penetrations or, for instance, insurance. For instance, you have, energy storage and all those, where a lot of innovations actually, play a critical role in terms of, providing long-term solutions to the Indian economy. So some of the DPIs are still, at an experimental stage. On the lending side, of course,
Sure.
we have the ULIs. Then on the security side, there are a couple of DPIs in the design and experimental stage. At times to come, I believe that there will be a lot of scopes where the fintech and the startup would have a greater role to play in terms of taking forward the Indian startup ecosystem to a global level. So our thought process is that we should actually look at, probably Indian fintech ecosystems at a global stage, creating India as the, the fintech hub or fintech capital of the world, maybe in the next couple of years. Thank you. Yeah.
Dr. Phukon, those are words that will definitely be very, very significant, because when you talk about India being the fintech capital of the world, it is something that we feel is already happening. Because if we look at the maturity, the finesse, the sophistication of the Indian financial services and the fintech sector, I think we're already leading the charts. Our DPI infrastructure, the way digital payments have been expanding. I mean, I think many of you sitting in the room today can say that when you meet with your friends or family, even in the most developed nations, what you see, the appreciation of the Indian fintech ecosystem, the way our payment system has matured, the way UPI has set the railroads, so to say, the basic guardrails are in place, everything is going well for the Indian fintech ecosystem, but we're ready for the next leap. Let me first, before we go on to the global part and go on to what next, actually help capture progress. We would love to hear from you how the Indian government is viewing progress in fintech and progress in the financial services space. We have Upasana Taku sitting here with us. She's in fact co-chairing, TIE India Internet Day this time. Classic example of how companies like MobiKwik have really grown from the start, and now today is a listed company on the Indian stock exchanges, and is obviously creating waves, has established that payments can be profitable. Share with us how the Indian government views this space, and the progress that you'd like to capture from the government's lens. We'd like to understand how the government is seeing the progress of India's fintech ecosystem.
From the policy perspective, we always look at, creating an enabling environment, through sort of enabling regulations. We also believe that, the fintech is an area where actually, innovations happening very fast. And, there is always a kind of, the gap, the innovations comes fast, then you look at perhaps the developments, then some sort of a regulation follows. But having said that, there are also, a lot of, enabling environment where the fintechs are being actually given the opportunity to actually, come forward and share their, innovations, experiments. There are also, some of the initiative, for instance, creation of SRO, that itself actually, diluted kind of a regulations where some sort of a comforts are being given actually. And while we all appreciate that the innovations, is actually time consuming, there is a cost involved for any innovations. And while, that innovation is actually, taking shape as a kind of a product and rolling out in the market, we definitely, ensure that that is actually backed by, certain experiments so that there is a buy-in in the market. So the first effort is to ensure that there is a, adequate kind of a, regulatory easing, comforts in terms of, innovation, experiment and rolling out of products. We have been also trying to actually look at some of the ecosystem level issues, engaging with the different entities, associations, try to look at what are the structural issues actually that have been actually in a way, not allowing the fintech to, explore the full potentials. So
Sure.
recently, DF has constituted a, interministerial industry
Correct.
committee. So we have already interacted, with the members of the committee, and we are trying to look at, and hopefully, at times to come, we feel that, this kind of arrangement will actually enable to have a, right kind of approach, taking India's fintech to the next level.
So it's very heartening to see two things coming out of your current statement. Number one, the understanding and appreciation from a top government official to say, you know what, innovation will come first and regulation will follow, because that's how it works. And that's why the need to create that enabling environment where we can ensure that regulation keeps pace with innovation and does not throttle innovation. On the other hand, enables it. And of course, we understand checks and balances are needed, but we need that enabling environment. I think the second point you made that was very valid was public-private partnership. And the reason that why your significance of being today here is the fact that we do require more and more public-private partnership models. We need multi-stakeholder engagement. We need the fact that there have to be industry and government working in tandem towards achieving common goals. In this case, it's about taking UPI global, taking India's fintech ecosystem global. Let's now move towards that path, the twin goals. Number one, financial inclusion, financial penetration in India. Number two, taking the innovations global. So talking about the global roadmap, there are many, many, many sitting here who want to understand if India is ready to take on the world, and if fintech and financial services will be that sector that will put India on the global map. Share with us how the government is viewing this.
It's again, taking the Indian, fintech ecosystem to a global stage. It's a multi-pronged approach. There are certain efforts, at a regulator to regulator, business to business, and of course from the government, it's G2G basis. We have been actually, trying hard in last couple of years to take some of the India's DPI, for instance, cross-border payments and all those. And this, of course, fintech and digital payment is a very distinct area of, bilateral, multilateral discussions, bilateral investment treaties, bilateral trade agreements. So hopefully, we are sure that, it's, all the push that have been actually given from different dimensions actually would enable to reach us to a particular desired level actually.
It's interesting. Please note, you already have Dr. Phukon saying that, you know what, your DPI, your financial ecosystem is part of some of those bilateral trade discussions. So you can imagine the impact of what builders are building here and how it impacts not just a nation, but perhaps the global ecosystem, because these we are talking about real time. As we all know, these are real time conversations, and we're living in crazy times, sir. We're living in times when uncertainty on policy is something that has become the new normal. There are obviously an impending, tariff situation that we're all dealing with, uncertainties of the kind that make it harder for founders in this room to plan their next step, because you don't know how geopolitical realities will play out. But staying with the global theme, what, according to you, makes India's DPI stand out that it can today conquer the world or be seen as a case study, or what, as to quote you, make India the fintech capital of the world? What are our clear strengths?
See, the current existing form of DPI, especially in the payment segments, have been actually, globally recognized. And, to give the, global community the kind of, ease of payments, we have recently started UPI One World. And if we see the kind of, the transactions trajectory in the UPI One World that have been really, really, increasing over times. And there are also, a couple of areas, actually, it's actually, both way that some of the global DPIs actually, bringing in India and, giving the benefit to the Indian audiences, and Indian DPIs actually taking, to the global stage. So I believe, this will create a lot of competitions and better price discovery, and, to the, larger communities, benefit.
And of course, it is something that is already being recognized because the way we are seeing UPI going global is something that we feel is a trend that will accelerate. From global ambitions to the Indian domestic market. At the end of the day, what makes India a bright spot in this otherwise era of geopolitical uncertainty is that our domestic market is so large and is so underpenetrated even today. And even if we look at something like the financial services infrastructure, whether it's in payments or it's in lending or it's in insurance, we know there is so much more room to grow. We've not even scratched the surface when it comes to penetration. And that brings us to the second goal of financial inclusion. How do we ensure that we're moving on the path of digital sovereignty, using both policy and infrastructure and innovation, and yet meeting the government's goal of ensuring that there is both financial inclusion and financial penetration, so it's a win-win-win for everybody?
I think, digital sovereignty basically, gives a paramount, actually foundation line for any economy to ensure that the digital platforms are providing a safe and secure environment to the users, actually. That's create a kind of digital trust. And the government, have been putting in various, mechanisms from time to time. Of course, if we see, there were a couple of regulations from the financial regulator also regarding data localization and all those. And on the top of that, we have already the DPIIT that itself actually, creates a kind of trust that data of customers will be actually, rightfully used through a consent-based framework. And that itself is actually, allowing both the business entities to actually, onboard the customers, onboard the, users in a very efficient and, easy way. And if we look at the financial, inclusion, of course, in the last decade, there have been various efforts, and in terms of, delivering the public benefits to the underserved communities, unserved areas, we have seen the DBT. DBT is a kind of, framework which has actually created a large, impact on the socio-economic fabrics of the country. Roughly around 40 lakhs, crore have been transferred through the DBT mechanisms. And the beauty is that, it's not only the money transferred through digital modes, but also, giving the users, the beneficiaries to use the money received from the government to actually spend digitally. It's, giving the UPI facilities. And in the process, actually, there is a digital data creations. You're getting the money online and you spending the money online. And, during the process, this digital data creation in a way actually, enable the fintech, especially the, in the lending space to actually, extend their credit portfolios, on a non-collateral basis, actually. So data, the digital footprint data is going to, play a critical role in the next wave of, startup fintech revolutions.
So it's important you mentioned this because we often talk about the opportunity, but we also have to talk about the risks that come with the opportunity. And of course, the opportunity is immense. As we can see, the ecosystem is exploding with innovation, with expansion. But we know that the government's very cognizant of the kind of risks that we're seeing that come with use of technology. And we're seeing, fraud, cybersecurity risks, as well as, the financial ecosystem continuing to face some disruptions or the other, sometimes even something as much as a UPI disruption that we've seen off late, right? So how worried are you about the risks that come with the kind of growth that we're seeing in the ecosystem? Is cybersecurity a very big plank? Is this something that the government's putting a lot of attention to? Is it a part of your blueprint at DFS?
So, again, there are, I see, while we talk about the fintech, the startup, it's a digital first kind of approach. But for us, it has to be digital first and secure by design, so that the system, the structure is actually resilient. And when our actually system is resilient, then actually, give you a first kind of a, trust. Coming into the, the security and the other, aspects you talked about, if you see for the first time, the cyber crime has been included as part of organized crime in the BNS Act. That itself is a kind of, deterrent for any, cyber frauds, cyber crime. On the top of that, recently, to bring more clarity, the governance of, cyber security framework, the government clearly, brought out the framework. On the top of that, there is a National Security Council Secretariat. Cyber preventive framework has been actually, entrusted to MATI to ensure that there are sufficient preventive framework to, protect the customers, to ensure that the, data are, secured and safely, processed within the domestic territories. And there are also ex-post kind of a, scenario where the incident happens and you have adequate safeguards to deal with the situations. For cybercrime, MHA, the responsibility has been given. And beyond that, there are sectoral regulators. Sectoral regulators, they have their own, the framework. Insofar as financial sector is concerned, the RBI and DFS from time to time have been issuing a lot of, regulatory prescriptions, guidelines, advisories to ensure that, while business are being actually, discharged, it's discharged in a safe and secure environment.
Sure.
So some of the, guidelines issued by, the RBI, for instance, master directions on digital payment security control, that itself, put a lot of, guardrails, safeguards to ensure how the, transactions rail could be actually, putting in place.
Dr. Phukon, I think, we're very fortunate that at the Startup Policy Forum, which is an industry platform that represents India's new age companies, we actually have some of India's finest fintech companies as part of our portfolio. And I talk very often to many fintech founders who are leading companies that are clearly world-class. And I think one thing that everybody has a lot of gratitude for is that, yes, our regulators are world-class. The checks and balances that we put in place keeps our financial ecosystem very safe, very secure. But sir, in the spirit of honesty, I would also say that the one concern that is often expressed is that we are over-regulated. We are sometimes seeing, you talked about number of guidelines, regulations, sometimes what enables business also is the pain of doing business, right? So are we seeing now a concerted effort towards deregulation, towards understanding that yes, while we want the guardrails, we want the checks and balances, but we also want this ecosystem to now experience the kind of growth and potential it deserves. And so just to quote the kind of data that is coming our way, we are seeing that fintech, which was the bellwether of the startup ecosystem, is now seeing its sheen going off because a lot of investors, and I've been part of the VC ecosystem, do feel that we need to ease up some of this regulatory overburdening. What's the view of DFS around that?
Of course, from the policy viewpoint, the overall approach is to have a light touch kind of a regulatory approach. It's a progressive regulations. As I'm saying that, we are operating in an area every day, every minute, some changes are happening actually. So it's kind of a, predictive regulations. Probably you see something now and you can predict that how it will take shape tomorrow. Those kind of actually, progressive predictive regulations should actually, come, in a gradual phase. But while saying so, let me also, give you a kind of, the example. For instance, when you were driving a car, actually, the speed should be as such that when you put the brake, the car should, stop. It should not overroll, actually.
Right.
So therefore, having some degree of regulation is also, kind of sensitizing, look at those are the, gray areas, those are the risks. Actually, you better take care of those risks. Those are, in a way, actually, if, initially, there may be, some kind of a, what I say,
pain.
Yeah, not exactly pain, actually, you're not able to accelerate the speed you actually, desire, but it also actually, give you a comfort that if you actually, drive, you will be safe. So definitely, as time pass on, there will be, a lot of changes depending on the, kind of, the innovations,
Sure.
the technological solutions we have been looking at. Thank you.
No, I must say, I think the industry is looking forward to more positive collaboration with the government, and the fact that the government is so engaging. You, for one, are always willing to listen to our founders, to listen to all of us as industry bodies, and have an open door, literally, to any issues we want to bring. I think that itself is very heartening for a democracy like ours, that we have that level of access. So I think you made a very important point about growth that is sustainable, and it's not at a pace that we see those kind of mishaps that you're talking about. And I think for us, it's important to understand that sweet spot. When are you not over-regulating, and when are you not under-regulating? Because the under-regulation leads to exactly the kind of problems you were talking about. You need those checks and balances. The over-regulation can lead to different kinds of problems, which sometimes we're saying. But I think going forward, we want to arrive at that rhythm with the industry and the government, where we find that sweet spot. And we say, you know what, this is exactly the kind of rhythm that's needed for that public-private partnership. So your closing remarks now on how you envisage this collaborative effort moving forward, and what is your ask of the industry as they come forward to engage with the government and look to the government on moving us on this path of digital sovereignty, financial inclusion, as well as global expansion.
Thank you, Shweta. What I believe that, in the next phase of growth, the most important thing is to actually keep intake the digital trust, to ensure that, the consumer, the, users, the stakeholders will actually, continuously believe the solution that have been actually, offering them, and from the policy side, from the government side, we have been, engaging with different stakeholders and looking at, things from different perspective, from the, the user sides, from the regulation side, from the innovation side. And it's, of course, as you were saying, it's a, collaborative approach, joint approach. The industry, the regulator, the government should come together and work towards a common, actually, collaborative goal.
No, thank you, Dr. Phukon. And I can say this as concluding remarks from my side, as someone who's engaged with government officials over many, many years in trying to enable progressive policy frameworks, that we really underestimate how hard it is to be in that chair, sitting in a government office, balancing multiple interests. We always see our interest, our agenda, but the government is trying to make it work for each one of us as citizens, as industry, for national security, for what's good for India. And our job is to push, and our job is to make sure that we are there having those conversations. But kudos to our government machinery to keep this going in the way they do. And honestly, if there is one sector that has truly benefited from government innovation, from the kind of foundation that the government has given us when it comes to UPI, UIDAI, the entire DPI infrastructure, it is fintech and financial services, sir. So many, many thanks and many congratulations for the remarkable work that the government under the Ministry of Finance has been doing. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you all. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phukon. And I would actually just reiterate the concluding remarks you did, Shweta. So digital infrastructure is what is building our startups really well, and thank you very much for that. We need a balanced policy tilted towards the entrepreneurs. Thank you so much. I would like to call Apurva, if he's around, to give a token of appreciation. Please, could you wait for a minute, please, sir? Sir, yeah. Upasana, can you please come and give us a token of appreciation to our guests? Thank you. Thank you, Upasana. Keep the applause going, please. Thank you. before we start our next session, it's a very relevant session on capital. I would like to thank our media partners, Z Media, News 9, Startup News, Outlook Business, Startup Story, and TSE. Thank you very much, people, for making this happen. So our next session is on